Our editorial on this very special day for ABC Amba TV will take a very in-depth look on all that concerns a referendum with this title, Referendum Debate Laid to Rest by Marcus F. Abendong. Referenda and plebiscites are all sampling mechanisms for people's opinions, but are not all applied in the same context or scenario. They very much look like the same in meaning and representation until very well explained. This paper should lay the referendum debate to rest. Marcus F. Abendong exposes Cooper's intentions and elaborates on the subject in great details, makes profound suggestions on how, if at all, such a referendum will be conducted and by who. It is a little on the long side, but it is achievable. External Self-Determination Through Referendum, the Case of Amazonia by Marcus F. Abendong, diving into it, starting with the citation 1. Sometimes an idea is esteemed to be wrong or seen to be wrong by who advances it. Skepticism is justified if, in the case at hand, the Yaoundé junta that has refused to go to the negotiation table, even to its own initiated Canadian table, suggests a referendum to decide the fate of the Southern Cameroons. The same applies if the suggestion comes from individuals within the Southern Cameroon struggle who have been seen and known to be opposed to the cause or whose actions and motives have been determined over the course of time to be suspicious and doubtful. The latter in the case in point, the question that skeptics will ask is, what are they up to this time around? The second citation, it seems to the writer and Her Majesty's government so desperately wanted to deprive the Southern Cameroons of independence that it laid and hatched multiple schemes to block the territory from acceding to autonomy and self-government. Having successfully blocked the independence planned for all colonies and trust territories, the United Kingdom imposed her own contraption, independence, by joining. Even here, the United Kingdom so badly wanted the Southern Cameroons to remain as part of Nigeria. It seemed that she abandoned all her post-plebiscite responsibilities towards the former. What befell the Southern Cameroons then in 1961 was evil, well orchestrated and executed by Her Majesty's government. Number 10 Downing Street was so bent on punishing the Southern Cameroons, it disregarded warnings and counsel from Parliament and its own representation in the territory. The UK's preference for a plebiscite instead of a referendum was probably part of the plan. Plebiscites are only consultative and do not have the power of law even at the United Nations. Is that why the UK was able to dodge her responsibility without anyone raising a finger? The evil that visited the Southern Cameroons in 1961 is more outrageous because it was executed exactly 1 month after a similar experience between Eritrea and Ethiopia. After a similar experience between Eritrea and Ethiopia had collapsed following the annexation of the weaker partner by the stronger on September 1st, 1961. How could the international community have gone ahead with the unification plan between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun after the East Africa experience had just failed? The UK, it seemed, was so angry with the Southern Cameroon's preference for La République du Cameroun that Her Majesty's government cut all trade with the territory after the plebiscite, without any provocation or justification. Now, into the introduction, the writer says he has followed the ongoing debate on whether or not Amazonia should submit itself to a referendum or a plebiscite or none. It appears that the merit of those opposed to a referendum is rooted in the new source of the referendum suggestion. The writer says new because we have always known that a referendum could be used to decide the future of the Southern Cameroons. In fact, this has been discussed in several SCNC and other think tanks over the years. However, we have always held the position that Southern Cameroon does not need a referendum to decide her fate because that fate was already decided by the UN Charter, the Trusteeship Agreement, and other UN resolutions, and especially by the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1608, granting the territory independence pursuant of the April 1961 Unger vote. International law and the merits and facts of the matter are overwhelmingly in favor of direct UN recognition of Southern Cameroon's statehood, and so it is expected that the United Nations should autocorrect the mess it created in 1961. This position is held under the assumption that diplomacy is an honest game managed by absolute principles and executed by disinterested men. This assumption is not always a verifiable truth. In fact, it is fallacious. The United Nations is highly influenced by geopolitics, multilateral and corporate interest, to the extent that genuine causes only get to the UN's attention after a huge price has been paid. The United Nations has at its disposal certain tools, its charter, treaties, conventions, and precedences, for the purpose of intellectualism and fairness. But then the writer does not address the subject as an Ambazonian, but as an observer of the situation, one well informed about the Cameroonian context and a curious researcher into the trappings of international relations. The writer goes on, if, however, in the course of this reflection, my frustrations and emotions are betrayed, bear with me. I am an Ambazonian first and foremost, must be troubled by the suffering of my people, and I feel betrayed by the international community. This reflection intends to prove that the international system is not a constant, that it does not respect its own laws and prescriptions, and that it is not in the power of people seeking justice to predetermine the channel through which what they seek should be provided. If that were the case, the present conflict in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia would not have arisen, because the United Nations would have rectified the mess it created decades ago on its own volition. We intend to portray with reasonable clarity that referendums are a credible and potent tool in the hands of sovereign nations and the UN to decide issues of external self-determination. To sustain this position, we shall briefly understudy the Quebecois, Scottish, Eritrean, and East Timorese independence referendums. We shall end by drawing lessons to apply in the case where international legal logic is defied, trampled underfoot, as is always the case, and the Southern Cameroons is subjected to a referendum. Definition of terms: the Oxford Dictionary defines referendum as follows: a general vote by the electorate on a single political question that has been referred to them for a direct decision. Oxford defined plebiscites as a direct vote of all members of an electorate on an important public question. Oxford Online. Referendum versus plebiscite. As seen above the two definitions, the two terms are synonymous and are often used interchangeably in today's modern English and in the media, including the BBC. However, synonyms have slight differences and are not always interchangeable. The outcome of a referendum is binding on the government or governments, whereas a plebiscite is a consultative exercise whose outcome might be set aside. Why conduct a plebiscite then if the government will not execute the will of the people? Sometimes governments consult the people to get their opinions, to better orientate their actions. Though the outcome of a plebiscite vote might not be executed, the government of the day will not do the contrary. The Southern Cameroon's 1961 11 February plebiscite did not compel the territory to unite with La République du Cameroon. The UNGA Resolution 1608 prescribed conditions that needed to be met before unification could be implemented. If the UNGA Resolution 1608 was respected and Southern Cameroon not simply invaded and annexed on September 30th, 1961, the possibility that unification would not have happened was great, because La République du Cameroon had no intention to enter into a federation with the Southern Cameroons. Now that we agree that a plebiscite is consultative and that it does not have the power of an act of law, the writer fears that if one is conducted to determine the fate of the territory today, the outcome thereof will not obligate La République du Cameroon to withdraw from the territory. Now, this is by Marcus F. Abendong. With this, we've come to the end of this very extensive article from Marcus F. Abendong and the end of our editorial for today. I hope you learned a lot from this. As always, find out payment details on your screen. I am Sir Smart, reporting for Daunted ABC Amba TV.